So, welcome friends, colleagues, so many familiar faces here, so many from the artistic community. Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate the Australia Council Awards. My name's Adrian Collette. My day job is I'm Chief Executive of the Australia Council. Tonight I seem to be moonlighting as your MC. I don't know who persuaded me to do this, but I'll give it my best shot, because I'm very proud of what we're going to do this evening. As always, thank you, Matthew Doyle, for the beautiful sweep. And now it's my very great pleasure to introduce Auntie Anne Weldon. We are honoured that she is going to welcome us to country this evening.
Thanks, Adrian. We gather this evening on the land of the mighty Eora Nation. And I am a Wiradjuri Kuri Balan. And my ancestral bloodline connects all along the lands and the waters of the Clare and the Murrumbidgee rivers. I'm a member of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, who is the cultural authority and custodian under the New South Wales Land Rights Act of land and water in this particular part of Eora country. And this evening I bring a message of respect and caring. And it is important to acknowledge this country's rich, first and original story. And I would like to pay my respects to all elders, past and present, of all Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people here this evening, and express my gratitude for the sacrifices that have been made by our elders to create a better quality of life for all peoples in our country. And it is indeed a humble privilege to provide a welcome to country. For me, it is the profound honour and a luxury of time. Time that has been given by you and time given by many warriors that started the traditions for everyone. A welcome isn't just words. It's a reflection of where we are. And the boundaries of traditional owners are not defined by the hand and a pen, but through the natural landscape of our incredible country. The Eora Nation's country covers the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Nepean to the west, and the Georges River to the south. So on behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Council, but more importantly with their permission, I welcome everyone to the land of the mighty Eora Nation and Gadigal people. And I acknowledge the Gadigal people's spirits and ancestors, for they will always remain within their land, our Mother Earth. And whenever you travel across this beautiful continent of ours, you are entering the lands, a nation, a tribe and a clan, which have, and we have, existed and belong to these land that stretches far beyond 60,000 years. And First Nations of this land, we are the most diverse, unique and sustainable people on the planet. We are the oldest living culture of the world, and it is important to acknowledge this country's rich, first and original history. So let me pay homage to the many warriors that created pathways for all of us, the ones recognised and the ones that we have never heard of. And our journey and milestones will only be realised if we can see, if we can feel, and if we can be a positive difference put into real action. And we must commit to making our world, our society inclusive, breaking through barriers, not creating them. And all of us together can bring about positive changes to multiple generations, starting with the healing of past generations and by declaring what should not have taken place to our present day generations, giving them hope. For our creators have certainly shown us a way of creating a better future for the next generations, for everyone in our country. And we as First Nations are not only surviving, we've not only survived, but we're certainly thriving. But sadly, the lessons have been learnt at our expense, and our devastation should and must be acknowledged. And the struggle, survival and dreams of our ancestors must and should be recognised as Australia's history. But to listen, learn and to come together to heal and prevent heartaches from ever happening again. So as you connect, learn and share today, tomorrow and beyond, please don't live regretting what should have been done, but create the legacy of what must be done. For our future is only as good as our history. And we here in Australia need to reflect upon the footsteps that we are all leaving to know where we are heading. shaping a world that we can be proud of, and the truth needs to be told. But it must be, for it to be heard, we need to walk together. So join me by learning from the ancient and living teachings of these lands' first peoples. And we can all draw upon my people's spirit as we continue on our journey together, for we believe that our ancestors' spirits walk beside us, guiding us and light our way. And we ask that you walk beside us. Please do not walk ahead of us, and allow my people, allow Aboriginal people to share the prosperity and the wealth that this country has to offer. I want to say that it is certainly indeed an honour and a great privilege for me to come here to conduct the welcome at the Australia Council Awards for 2020. You know, the council itself is rather remarkable, and indeed, you know, it is an honour, and I thank you very, very much for allowing me. There is one special request that I ask every time I have the honour to conduct a welcome, is for each and every one of us to remember our loved ones that have passed over before us, the giants that have allowed all of us to stand on their shoulders, the beautiful people that are sitting beside you right now, but more importantly, those gorgeous, precious little ones that follow in our footsteps. So may my people's spirit walk and guide all of us as we continue on our journey together, and let that journey be one where we will continue to make our country the best that it is in the world. So once again, welcome to the land of the Eora Nation. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Auntie Anne, for your very generous welcome. It's a privilege to hold tonight's award ceremony on Gadigal land. I pay my respect to elders past, present, and would like to acknowledge many First Nations colleagues who we have here tonight. On behalf of the Australia Council, I would like to welcome especially the Federal Minister for Communications, Cyber Safety and the Arts, the Honourable Paul Fletcher. Also to welcome so many of our sector leaders and artists who individually and collectively make such a mighty contribution to the creative life of our nation. I'd like to welcome members of the Australia Council Board who are here tonight in force, and all my hard-working colleagues. Thank you for everything we do. I'd also like to welcome the tens of thousands of people watching this by live stream, I'm sure. We'll be asking them questions later. I also want to acknowledge our Auslan interpreters, Jennifer McLaughlin and Alana Wiechart, who are joining us here tonight. And now please join me in welcoming to the stage Australia Council's Chair, Sam Walsh.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Auntie Anne, for your welcome to country. I also pay my respect to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. To our audience here tonight, to Minister Fletcher, guests, families, friends, and my valued colleagues of the Australia Council, I welcome you. To a national community of artists who responded so quickly when the bushfires and floods presented such challenges, we thank you. We also owe you. And to our award recipients here tonight who have brought us together here tonight, and we honour you. What a privilege it is to be here, in this theatre, on this stage, and before this audience on this night. And what a night it is, a night to celebrate what it is to be human, by celebrating the work of those who remind us what it means. A night to be excited by artists who bridge disciplines and forms, to imagine unimagined opportunities during this time of unprecedented change. Artists creating gateways to other worlds where we can stop for a moment and look back on our own, allowing us to consider as individuals, as communities, and as a nation where we are and where we could be, who we are and who we should be. Artists like our 8 award recipients here tonight, all fearless in their pursuit of human expression, in making us confront the confronting and listen to the unheard. Provocateurs, advocates, and living legends, working with us and within us on behalf of all of us. Cherished representatives of an extraordinary creative community who give deserving voice to the diverse stories of one of the most linguistically and culturally diverse populations here on Earth. Our diversity in Australia is not an aspiration or target. It is our most precious resource, the groundspring of our creativity and inspiration for our arts. Tonight we recognise what art does through celebrating artists whose creativity connects us. People, communities and cultures, ideas, industries and markets. Artists who have inspired the Australia Council to look forward beyond a culturally ambitious nation towards a creatively connected one. Late last year we launched our new corporate plan, a plan that charts our journey towards greater public value, towards a more holistic view of what Australians require from the arts, towards a more cultural, social and economic value creation through the arts. A plan guided by a new vision, creativity connects us, because quite simply, it does. To our award recipients tonight, I look forward to celebrating your achievements. But first, on behalf of the Australia Council, on behalf of those whose minds you have opened, to those whose stories you tell, and on behalf of a nation that your creativity connects, I thank you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce the Minister for the Arts, the Honourable Paul Fletcher, MP.
Well, thank you very much, Sam, and it is great to be here for this glittering night of nights for the artistic community. And can I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, when you look at the biographies of those who are being recognised and receiving awards tonight, Brooke Andrew, reinterpretation of colonial and modern histories and sharp focus on showing us alternative perspectives. Kath Duncan, artist, writer, provocateur, celebrating and embracing the importance of difference. Deborah Conway, she has pushed boundaries, co-founded the fiercely independent punk band Do Re Mi. I said to Adrian Collette, where are the meek conformists? Where are the stolid defenders of the status quo? Those who see things as they are and say, good, let's leave it just like that. And Adrian said to me, Minister, this is the arts sector, we don't do things like that. And of course, he's right. Artists have a distinct and different view of the world and use their creativity to present their distinctive view. But of course, to have an impact, they have to do more than that. They have to get others attracted, engaged, compelled, captivated by their vision. And we see that in the achievements of the awardees this evening. Deborah Conway with her top 20 single, It's Only the Beginning, and 2 top 20 albums. Tommy Murphy with his record run at Belvoir Street with Packer and Sons. Or Michelle Ryan, who's shown us how the use of dance can help those of us who do not have disability to understand what disability means. So tonight we're celebrating 8 diverse practitioners of the arts, each with their own vision, recognised by their peers, accessible to audiences, and causing all of us to reassess how we look at and think about their subject matter. That is certainly something to celebrate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Minister, and thank you also for your very deep engagement with the arts since becoming Minister. you have spent so much time not just attending things, but very much getting backstage. It's deeply appreciated. So, as the Minister said, we tonight award and celebrate 8 remarkable artists. I'm told there have been a few changes to the awards this year, not least that we find ourselves in this exquisite Eternity Playhouse. A wonderful city is made up of wonderful places which inspire wonderful stories, and the making of Sydney is incomparably rich with stories about place and places, ancient and contemporary. Many of you will be familiar with a local story from this place, the Arthur Stace story. Arthur Stace, born in Redfern in 1985, raised in poverty, worked in a coal mine and thrown in jail as a drunk at the age of 15. The Depression, Stace converted to Christianity after being captivated by a homily. How many of us have been captivated by a homily? The Echoes of Eternity by local evangelist John G. Ridley. Eternity, eternity, he said, I wish that I could sound or shout that word to everyone in the streets of Sydney. You've got to meet it. Where will you spend eternity? Stace did not shout. He did something far more affecting. For over 30 years after his conversion, up until his death in the 1960s, Stace walked the streets at night anonymously chalking the single word eternity on every makeshift billboard he could find, covering walls and footpaths from Sydney to Parramatta with his singular exhortation. For decades, he intrigued and inspired millions with his elegant, enigmatic, yellow chalk street art. And it is here at the former Burton Street Tabernacle that on the 14th of December 1932 he wrote Eternity for the very first time. This one word captivated the people of Sydney then as it does now. Stace died in 1967, but his elegant copperplate remains an iconic symbol of our city, inspiring memorials, fiction, even opera, film and more, with his singular message of hope. So, welcome to eternity. Art works in mysterious ways. And we have many more stories to tell this evening, so I'd better get on with it and stop indulging myself. But it's a great, great story. We will see highlights of the recipients' extraordinary bodies of work tonight. We'll hear from each artist and we'll experience wonderful performances that bring to life the artistry and distinction of our awards. And you'll notice we've agreed, we've all met before the show, no handshakes, no hugs or kisses. Can you imagine an art sector gathering without hugs or kisses? And now we will move to the first of this evening's presentation. So,
the 2020 Australia Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature goes to Margaret Wilde.
To Australian literature. In 2020, the Australian Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature recipient is Margaret Wilde.
The 2020 Australia Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature goes to Margaret Wilde. Margaret Wilde is one of Australia's most highly respected picture book creators. She has published over 70 books for young people, which have been translated, read and loved across the world. Margaret's work speaks directly to children, tackling big and sensitive issues in picture book form with care and respect for her readers. Her work explores themes such as identity, death, homelessness, friendship and bullying through nuanced characters and captivating stories. Margaret's work is never didactic. She writes with playfulness, humour and joy. Her seminal work, Fox, illustrated by Ron Brooks, was considered an Australian classic from the moment it was published. It won the CBCA Book of the Year, the Queensland Premier's Literary Award for a children's book, as well as Germany's most prestigious prize for children's literature. 3 of her other works won the CBCA Children's Book of the Year Award for picture books, with many more shortlisted. Margaret is held in high esteem and affection by her writing peers. She has worked with and mentored many emerging talents. A Margaret Wilde collaboration is widely considered an endorsement of a young illustrator's work. It is a delight to recognise such a highly regarded writer on behalf of generations of readers, both here and around the world. Please join me in celebrating Margaret Wilde, recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Lifetime Achievement in Literature.
Margaret, please join us. Is Margaret there? Yes, here we are. This is your incredibly heavy trophy.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I will look after it for you. I won't leave town.
Thank you. Thank you to the Australia Council for this award. I am amazed and humbled to be receiving it. When I look at the previous recipients, many of my heroes, I feel extremely honoured indeed. Because I'm a children's writer, you probably expect me to talk about literacy and the value of reading 1,000 books to your child before they turn 4. Actually, that's not a bad idea. But I'd rather talk about parties. In the early 1980s, if you mentioned you wrote children's books, people would edge away, fearing you were going to talk about fairies and bunnies. They'd reach for the nearest gin and tonic, and so would I. But things changed when the Harry Potter books were massively successful from 1997 onwards. Suddenly it seemed everyone wanted to write a children's book. Madonna wrote a series called The English Roses. Jerry Seinfeld wrote Halloween. Kevin Rudd wrote a book about the adventures of his pet cat and dog, Jasper and Abby. Any moment now, I'm expecting Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to write their own dog series. Perhaps they'll be called Harry the Dirty Dog, Harry by the Sea, or No Roses for Harry. Actually, these are real titles by Jean Zion. They're terrific books, and I highly recommend them for readers aged 3 to 7. I have a lot of thank yous to make. This is going to sound like the Oscars, but without the glamour. So first of all, thank Agent Margaret Connolly and the Children's Book Council of Australia, which so tirelessly supports writers and illustrators. When you write picture books, you need 2 things, a great illustrator and a great publisher. So thank you to all the illustrators I've been lucky enough to work with. Brilliant people like Ron Brooks and Julie Vivas, who are both here tonight, as well as many others. Without their talent, there would be no books. So really, this award is as much theirs as it is mine, except that I'm going to be spending the money. Thank you to all the publishers I've worked with. Margaret Hamilton, Julie Watts, Jane Covington, Jane Godwin, Margreta Lamond, Rosin Price, and Erica Wagner. Over the years, I've sent them some very strange little stories. They might have felt bemused, but they always responded with kindness and generosity. And finally, thank you to all those teachers, librarians, and children who actually read the books. Thank you.
That's wonderful, thank you. Now, we're delighted that one of Margaret's long-term collaborators, illustrator Ron Brooks, is here tonight. Ron and Margaret worked together on a book called Old Pig. And as a special treat, we are now going to see and hear that book brought to life for us. I just want to quote this from the New Yorker review of Old Pig that particularly struck me. It said this heartbreaking, gentle, perfectly indirect story about the last days on earth of an elderly pig offers a better introduction to the fact and poetry of mortality than many a more studied attempt. So please welcome Kate Worsley to the stage to take us through Old Pig.
Old Pig. Old Pig and granddaughter had lived together for a long, long time. They shared everything, including the chores. Every day, granddaughter chopped the wood, while Old Pig cleaned out the fire grate. Granddaughter swept, while Old Pig dusted. Old Pig made the beds, while Granddaughter hung up the washing. Granddaughter made porridge, tea and toast for breakfast. Old Pig diced carrots and turnips for lunch. And together, Old Pig and Granddaughter prepared their dinner of corn and oats. "I hate corn and oats," Granddaughter always said. And Old Pig always replied, "Corn and oats are good for you. While I'm alive, my dear, you'll eat them up." At that, Granddaughter stopped complaining. She'd eat corn and oats for breakfast, lunch and dinner if it meant that Old Pig would live forever. One morning, Old Pig did not get up as usual for breakfast. "I'm feeling tired," she said. "I think I'll have breakfast in bed today." "But you never eat in bed," said Granddaughter. "You don't like getting crumbs in the sheets." "I'm tired," Old Pig repeated. And when Granddaughter brought her a tray of porridge, toast and tea, Old Pig was asleep. And she slept through lunch and dinner too. While Old Pig slept, Granddaughter chopped the wood, cleaned out the fire grate, swept, dusted, did the washing and made her bed. She tried to whistle while she worked, but all she could manage was a lonely little oink. The next morning, Old Pig was still tired, but she made herself get up. She had a spoonful of porridge, a bite of toast, and a sip of tea. "That's not enough to feed a sparrow, let alone a big old pig like you," said Granddaughter. She pulled a funny, stern face, but Old Pig just shut her eyes for a moment, then looked around for her bag and hat. "I have a lot to do today," she said. "I must be prepared." "Prepared for what?" asked Granddaughter. Old Pig didn't reply. She didn't have to. Granddaughter already knew the answer, and it made her feel like crying inside. Old Pig returned her books to the library and didn't borrow any more. She went to the bank, took out all her money and closed the account. Then she went to the grocery store and paid the bill. She also paid the electricity bill, the greengrocer's bill, and the bill for firewood. When she got home, she tucked the rest of her money into Granddaughter's purse. "Keep it safe," she said, "and use it wisely." "I will," said Granddaughter. She tried to smile, but her mouth wobbled, and Old Pig said, There, no tears." "I promise," said Granddaughter, but it was the hardest promise she had ever had to make. "Now," said Old Pig, "I want to feast." "You've got your appetite back?" Granddaughter asked, suddenly feeling hopeful. "I'm not hungry for food," Old Pig said. "I want to take a slow walk around the town and feast my eyes on the trees, the flowers, the sky, on everything." So Old Pig and Granddaughter went for a slow walk around the town. Every now and again, Old Pig had to stop and rest, but she kept on looking and listening, smelling and tasting. "Look," said Old Pig. "Do you see how the light glitters on the leaves?" "Look," said Old Pig. "Do you see how the clouds gather like gossips in the sky?" "Look," said Old Pig. "Do you see how the summer house is reflected in the lake?" "Do you hear the parrots quarrelling? Can you smell the warm earth? Let's taste the rain." It was late by the time Old Pig and Granddaughter got home. Old Pig was so exhausted that Granddaughter helped her straight into bed. Then Granddaughter made herself a bowl of corn and oats, and she ate them all up. She washed the dishes and put them away. Then she went into Old Pig's room. Old Pig was not yet asleep. Granddaughter sat beside her on the bed. She said, "Do you remember when I was little and had a bad dream, you used to come into my bed and hold me tight?" "I remember," said Old Pig. "Tonight," said Granddaughter, "I'd like to come into your bed and hold you tight. Would that be all right?" "That would be very all right," said Old Pig. So Granddaughter switched off the lights and opened the window to let in the breeze, and opened the curtains to let in the moon. Then she climbed into Old Pig's bed. She put her arms around Old Pig, and for the very last time, Old Pig and granddaughter held each other tight until morning.
Thank you very much indeed, Kate, and thank you, Margaret, and thank you, Ron. So moving on. The Australia Council Award for Theatre recognises the achievements of an artist who has made an outstanding contribution to theatre. In 2020, the award goes to Tommy Murphy.
The recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Theatre is Tommy Murphy. Tommy Murphy is a renowned playwright and screenwriter. He is known across the Australian theatre community for his artistic rigour, incisive voice, and humble leadership. As a playwright, he works with heart and humour, and as a colleague, he moves with integrity, soft grace, and sharp wit. For the past 20 years, Tommy has been drawing the attention of theatre makers and theatre audiences alike with his creation of the kind of deeply nuanced characters who both challenge and clarify what we share as people. As an emerging artist, he won the ACT Young Playwrights Award in 1996, and the following year he received the Sydney Theatre Company's Young Playwrights Award. Tommy's success has continued to be recognised, and he has received both the Philip Parsons Young Playwrights Award and the New South Wales Premier's Literary Award for his work. In the years since those early awards, he has continually sought out and told complex contemporary Australian stories, creating characters of our world, real and imagined, wrestling them into a theatrical frame to create intelligent, insightful and relevant plays. Despite his success as a screenwriter, Tommy has always been at home in the theatre, believing in the inherent power of the shared and visceral experience of live performance. He is a passionate advocate for the development of the art form and the critical role theatre plays in our cultural narrative. Tommy's contribution to the Australian theatrical canon is wide-ranging, from illuminating the experience of 90-year-old Gwen in the existential comedy Gwen in Purgatory to an internationally acclaimed adaptation of Peter Pan. He has explored the lives of the very public Packer family and of Mary Ellen Field and Mark Colvin's friendship. From 2004 to 2006, Tommy was a resident playwright at Griffin Theatre Company, where he wrote Strangers in Between and his now iconic and multi-award-winning adaptation of Holding the Man. At a time when it is even more urgent we tell our stories of the here and now, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate Tommy Murphy, recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award.
We just bow. We're told not to shake hands. You're lucky I didn't get a kiss. I'm so happy. I'm very aware of the privilege to be receiving this award, a very generous prize, particularly at a time of diminished funding for the arts. I'm very grateful to the Australia Council and your staff for everything that you do. This award's going to grant me time, and I'll use that time to write a play, but I've also offered my services to the Canberra Youth Theatre, where my play was produced when I was 16. It's one of the smaller companies in a perilous position because of a lack of subsidy. I've further volunteered my time to Belvoir, where my most recent play was produced, to assist in their training program for young writers, and particularly in their mission to broaden the face of who a playwright is in Australia. I know that my fellow recipients tonight will be doing similar things. They will be giving of their time in various ways, and they'll do it habitually, because you get good bang for your buck when you invest in artists. I want to gratefully acknowledge the Minister, Paul Fletcher MP. Thank you for being here. I'm not the first to comment on your engagement with the arts. It matters that you're here, and it matters that you have made yourself prominent in your portfolio. And it matters also that you participate in the arts as an audience. It really is noticed. And if the argument doesn't wash with any of your colleagues across the political spectrum that the arts is nourishing for our society, that we give back, please make that case that we also provide jobs and we stimulate the economy and tourism, and we do it in the cities and in the regions, and that without proper government support, jobs will be lost and those skills will be wasted or they'll go overseas and the community misses out. Thank you for your support. I want to again express my gratitude to those arts organisations where I got my start, and many of them were the smaller companies like Griffin Theatre Company, and there were also for me, that was in Queanbeyan, New South Wales. This award comes after Packer and Sons at Belvoir, a play about Sydney's powerful, and there was a bit of pushback. I wouldn't have been able to weather that without the support of an extraordinary team led by Eamon Flack, a visionary director, and the courageous board of Belvoir. And I acknowledge that very skilled team that helped me create this work. I want to thank also David Williamson and Shane Brennan. They're two writers who give back. They funded the Plays Commission and supported it into production. I want to dedicate this award to my late fiancée, Dane. I certainly know something about what Old Pig was on about. You do, when you glimpse mortality, get to taste life a little bit more richly, and tonight tastes delicious. And Dane is represented here by his parents, Marg and Bern. And Dane's memory remains my reason to be so grateful for all that I have. Thank you so much.
Tommy, thank you so much. The Australia Council Award for Emerging and Experimental Art is given to an artist whose work is characterised by experimentation, risk, collaboration, research and development. It often operates at the intersection of artistic disciplines and partnerships. I'm delighted to announce tonight that in 2020 the award goes to Ree.
The recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Emerging and Experimental Arts. Ree is a Gamilaroi Wallawan Biripi artist from New South Wales. They examine the bonds between our bodies and our politics, our memories, our place and our futures. In their practice, Ree works with photography, digital media and moving images, connecting people and their stories through technology and time. Ree has been a curator, cultural educator, arts worker and artist. They have studied extensively across art and the sciences in both Australia and New York. They meld words, images and science with our imaginations, forcing questions and eliciting answers from a collective voice. Ree's extensive research has been recognised with a Fulbright Scholarship, a Sam Stagg International Visual Arts Scholarship, and an Australia Council New Media Arts Fellowship. Ree now lectures at the University of Queensland, helping new generations understand human senses from an intercultural perspective. Ree's personal practice has been exhibited across Australia, Canada and the UK. It showcases cutting-edge contemporary expressions of First Nations identity to a range of audiences. Their work propels us forward into an exciting, intricate and ever-developing future, and does so with both grace and a fierce momentum. It is an honour to celebrate them with this award. Please join me in congratulating the recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Emerging.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose land we are standing on, and pay my respects to their ancestors past, present and emerging. I'm a descendant of the Gamilaroi Wallaman people through my mother's lineage and a descendant of the Biripi people through my father's. I pay my respects to my ancestors past pre-merging as well. I'd also like to acknowledge my family, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. I'd like to thank Jeremy Smith and my peers for this award and the Australia Council. As a practicing artist, I'm honoured to receive this award. I think that leadership in the arts goes hand in hand with mentoring. I would not be the artist that I am today if I had not been mentored by people like Lisa Colley and Andrew Donovan from the Australia Council, Hetty Perkins and Brenda Croft from my early Bamali years, and Stephen Jones, an independent artist. My artist-led research practice has been supported by Dr. Jennifer Biddle, Dr. Mari Velinaki, Dr. Wendy Holland, Dr. Tracy Bunda, and Dr. Bronwyn Fredericks. And last but not least, my partner and mentor, Gail Kelly, theatre director, who along with feminist theorist Dr. Peter Tate, changed the face of contemporary physical circus in this country and repositioned the field through critical discourse and, dare I say, gave it content. I believe that leadership and mentoring of the next generation of artists needs to be prioritised as we all move forward in our creative practice. We live in difficult times with limited funds. So one way we can continue to grow as a successful society filled with creative thinkers is to be open and more inclusive in how we share our knowledge and experiences. Always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you.
Thank you, Ree, and congratulations again. In just our 6th year of presenting the Australia Council Award for Dance, I'm delighted to announce that the 2020 award goes to Michelle Ryan.
The 2020 Australia Council Award for Dance goes to Michelle Ryan. Michelle is an extraordinary Australian dance artist. In her 25 years in the arts, Michelle has worked as a performer, choreographer, artistic director, and mentor. She uses her lived experience of disability to inform all her artwork with humour, warmth, and searing honesty. In 2005, Michelle began working with Dance North and helped to found Splinter Group, and in 2013, she was appointed Artistic Director of Restless Dance Theatre. In 2015, Michelle was inducted into the South Australian Women's Honour Roll. Her production of Intimate Space for Restless Dance Theatre premiered at the 2017 Adelaide Festival and has taken out a string of awards. Her autobiographical solo show Intimacy won the 2015 Australian Dance Award for Independent Dance, and Michelle was also awarded the Adelaide Critics Circle Award for her performance. Michelle has performed in London at the Unlimited Festival, at the Melbourne Malthouse Theatre and the Adelaide Festival Centre. She has also worked on the multi-award-winning film Michelle's Story, directed by Meryl Tankard. Michelle's work is defined by her deep engagement with dancers of all abilities and her authenticity and commitment to showcasing humanity, emotion, and individual experiences. As Artistic Director of Restless, Michelle has grown the scope of audience engagement, touring works nationally and internationally. This dedication to creating pathways for other disabled artists is a hallmark of Michelle's practice. It is an honour to recognise her work on stage and behind the scenes, her warmth, her artistic talent, her discipline, her rigour, her passion and her strength. Please join me in congratulating the recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Dance, Michelle.
Emotionally as I did just then. So thank you to Auntie Anne for the welcome, and I'd also like to thank the Australia Council for this award. I feel very honoured and privileged to be able to work in an industry that I love. And for the last 30 years, I've been able to work with amazing people who have encouraged me, they've challenged me, but they've always supported me. The journey has not always been easy, but it's never been boring or dull. To my beautiful mum and dad who can't be here tonight, but I know that they are watching. Hi, mum and dad. And thank you to my brother who was able to join me, Mark from Brisbane. But thank you to my mum and dad for allowing a 17-year-old girl from Townsville to be able to dream about being a dancer. And they encouraged me to be brave and bold, but always respectful. To Meryl Tankard and to Regis Lansac for teaching me that the first answer to a task is not always the best or the most creative. Thank you for giving me the curiosity to be able to create movement that actually means something, and for giving me a space that I could flourish and grow. And I really thank you for your guidance and support over the years. To all the people who encouraged me to return to dance, especially Joanne Fisher, who is with us. As a person who acquired disability, I thought that no one would want to see someone like me on stage. And I didn't dance for 10 years. But thank goodness that changed, and I realised that that wasn't the case. And that, it was important for me to regain my sense of self through the arts and through dance. And that moment I stepped on stage, well, I did actually step on stage at that stage. My soul soared. And it really is a testament to the value and the importance of the arts in people's lives. I now have the great privilege of working with Restless Dance Theatre, with artists with and without disability, and I thank them for inspiring me to make work that celebrates diversity on stage, because representation is so important. And the Restless dancers are professional, they're skilled, and they can melt your heart, but they can also make you really question your own perceptions on humanity. And I just would like to thank Nick Hughes, who's in the audience from Restless Dance Theatre, and Ros Hervey, who I often joke is half my brain, but is also the rehearsal director. She's the creative producer of Restless. But most importantly, to my beautiful dancers. And in finishing, if I can just leave one thing that I have learnt from my 7.5 years at Restless, is that you should expect excellence and not be surprised by it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Warmest congratulations again. As that montage beautifully illustrated, Restless Dance Theatre is Australia's leading dance company working with artists with and without disability. Now for a treat, I think. We're now privileged to watch an excerpt from Seeing Through Darkness, a new work directed by Michelle, that will premiere at the Art Gallery of South Australia in August. The work will feature 6 Restless dancers, an original score by the Zephyr Quartet, and an innovative lighting installation by Jeff Cobham. Please welcome to perform for us tonight Restless dancers Gianna Georgiou and Alexis Luke. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Gianna and Alexis, and of course, Michelle. And so now we move to our Community Arts and Cultural Awards. These two awards are each named for artists who are no longer with us in recognition and celebration of the contribution of both Kirk Robson and Ros Barr. The Australia Council Kirk Robson Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development recognises outstanding leadership from a young artist or arts professional, particularly working in reconciliation and social justice. It was established to honour the memory of Kirk Robson, a significant young leader in this sector who passed away at a tragically young age. His work was focused on justice for all and compassion for the marginalised. In 2020, the Australia Council Kirk Robson Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development goes to Autumn Scewthorpe.
The recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Kirk Robson Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development is Autumn Scewthorpe. Since the age of 12, Autumn has lived in the central Queensland city of Mackay. Her regional base informs her approach to art making with community in a range of settings and contexts. She is an experienced performer, artist, arts worker and administrator, driven by community arts engagement and development. Her work spans music, film, cultural events, zines, youth arts leadership and mentoring, visual arts and performance. Since 2006, Autumn has worked with Crossroad Arts. All of her work with the company has been Autumn's close and considered collaboration with artists from the community who want to tell their own stories. She has facilitated workshops, as well as co-producing and directing original new works. For members of Mackay and the surrounding region who identify as disabled, Autumn's presence has been pivotal. She has and continues to work with these community members to spark exciting, new and varied forms of creative participation. Her tireless efforts and deep respect for people has resulted in meaningful and contemporary expressions of what it means to be human. Autumn has also founded several artist collectives, coordinated festivals, as well as exhibiting and performing her own work. All who work with Autumn are touched by her boundless creativity, her deep resolve and her ever-present kindness. On the ground in Mackay, I have personally witnessed Autumn's work with Crossroad Arts twice. She beautifully supported and guided an incredible ensemble of artists and community members, all with mixed abilities during each performance. You can see in her that familiar light which many of the great community arts practitioners of our era illuminate early in their own careers. I can't wait to watch how Autumn nurtures that light as she continues to evolve her practice. Please join me in congratulating Autumn Scewthorpe, recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Kirk Robson Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development.
I just had to do that. Hello, everybody. Many thanks for the warm welcome, Auntie, to your nation. I have practiced and grown up on country with great joy and curiosity, all the while with a guiding feeling innate of the leadership of culture, song and wisdom of the traditional owners of this land, of our elders past, present and emerging. It is a significant honour for me to be here in celebration with all these amazing artists who have made such a significant contribution on home soil and beyond. I would like to acknowledge the Robson family in receiving this very special award. My name is Autumn Ordewa Scewthorpe, and I live and work on Yuwi country in regional central Queensland, Mackay 4740. That's very important, that little bit there. My whakapapa also connects me to the tribes of Te Arawa, Tūhoi, Ngāti Kahanunu and Ngāti Porou. The legacy of Kirk Robson, of community, of the radically gentle approach of bringing people together through art making in 2020, it is still relevant and it is still necessary. smart person, local to the region where I'm from, hashtag Mackay Pride, another round of applause, reminded me recently that every big city is made up of smaller suburbs and smaller neighbourhoods. That every township is made up of locals who want to support locals. And when our community is feeling strong, every farm, every shire, every business, every family born into and made is at its core a group of people who want to support each other. And that's not just to survive, that's to thrive and to create a collective identity through our joint storytelling. When our community is feeling strong, we are better equipped to challenge the status quo. We are more resilient, more likely to call out discrimination when we see it. So knowing that our wholeness is made up of smaller factions and divisions, but also beauties, cadences, shades, I think that community arts and cultural development is something astounding in that it embraces all of these differences and unifies us. Within us, we carry our homes and our living histories. So regardless if you are from a big city or a small town, you are from a community. And when we feel strong together, we are better able to enact societal change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Autumn. The Australia Council Ros Bauer Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development honours journalist, television producer, community arts pioneer and founding director of the Council's inaugural Community Arts Board, Ros Bauer. I'm delighted that Ros's son, Steve Warren, is here with us in the audience tonight. I think Steve and I went to university together many, many years ago. Tonight, with great pleasure, we announce the Australia Council Ros Bauer Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development goes to Kath Duncan.
The recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Ros Bauer Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development is Kath Duncan. Kath has worked extensively across the arts sector, celebrating and embracing the importance of difference. She has been a key part of arts and disability programs, including Quippings and The Art of Difference. She appeared on the TV program No Limits and led the ARC linkage research project The Last Avant-Garde in partnership with Arts Access Victoria. She is a writer, a director, a provocateur, artist, a comedian, a producer, a journalist, a radio presenter, a researcher, and so much more. Her work has also provided voice and strength to others. She has helped to develop a wellspring of talent in the kind of inclusive way that sees artists of all descriptions find their story, their practice, and their community. She seeks all the joy that is to be had, engaging with meaningful and weighty topics through a lens that is expansive and insightful, but lets the light in. Much of Kath's art is steeped in her own lived experience. Her art is truthful, raucously funny, discombobulating, and piercingly blunt. She uses her work to share her knowledge that the lived experience of disability is a source of deep and abiding pride. In 2010, Kath co-founded Quippings, a diverse and inclusive independent cabaret ensemble which has revolutionised pathways into the disability arts and independent art scenes, nurturing hundreds of young and emerging intersectional disabled artists to develop skills across artistic domains from performance to production. Every part of her practice is laced with solidarity and support. When Kath speaks, everyone in her presence listens and learns. As a disabled man, I personally am proud to call Kath both an ally and an accomplice. I am sure this sentiment is reflected by many others in our sector. She is an activist and an agitator who makes space for everyone to be heard, to contribute, to be seen, and to have fun. I am sure it will bring many great joy to celebrate the cultural change and perception shifts Kath has instigated. Please join me in congratulating Kath Duncan, recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Ros Bauer Award for Community Arts and Cultural Development.
Oh, Jeremy, that's not fair. You nearly made me cry. Look, I think history is important, and history can be a really provoking kind of tool. So 50 years ago, I was sent to speech and drama classes by my parents because they thought it would give me confidence. It did. But 40 years ago, there I was in my hometown here in Sydney, and I was in an open workshop for performers and, just getting into my little groove. And I get the tap on the shoulder, and it's one of my tutors, and he says to me, "Kath, you're distracting the other performers. Can you go to the back?" I went to the back, I kept going. I left that place, and I swore that for the rest of my life, nobody would have to have that happen to them. I don't know I've really achieved that, but I am giving it my best shot. As you've heard from that, I've sort of worked everywhere. I've worked at the ABC, I've worked at SBS, I've worked in community radio, I've worked at Radio Skid Row, 2SER. Kath Dwyer's here tonight from 2SER. Oh my God, we had such an amazing time. And along the way, I've found allies, maybe people who didn't sort of know much about disability but could see that, that I had a story to tell and that we all had stories to tell and who worked with me. So I don't feel like I've kind of been doing this all by myself. Now, you saw there some sort of excerpts from these workshops that we organised over the last 3 years when I've been working on an Australian Research Council grant. Has anyone ever done one? They're just amazing. We call them art grants. They are amazing. 3 years to get intensively into research. And we were looking at the kind of inclusive performance strategies that those of us who are deaf and disabled performers have developed, hoping that there'd be sort of wider application for them in the sort of wider arts industry. And I'd like to thank that team who worked with me because I got to be a boss. For the first time in my life, I was a proper boss, and it was just awesome working with Eddie Patterson, who you saw up there, Madeline Little, and Sarah Austin. Just amazing. I just finished that job last week, yes. And we held workshops in 7 Australian cities, played with 130 performing artists who are deaf and disabled across Australia. We employed 20 experienced deaf and disabled creative leaders to run the workshops, and we filmed and photographed a lot. I'd also like to thank Jeremy Smith, who's there, who's our buddy. But I'd really like to thank the person who nominated me, and she's here, Veronica Pardo. Thank you, Veronica. What a great idea. Yeah. How distracting am I now? Am I distracting enough, finally? Oh, I'll stop shouting now. Hey, look, I just want to say this is amazing, an acceptance from the Australia Council. It's my first. Is the Literature Board here tonight? Because you rejected my great anthology. You rejected my great anthology of amputee erotica 30 years ago. Why? I have no idea. But the good news is it's still available. Call me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move to the presentation of the Visual Arts Award. Honouring his exceptional achievement to the development of Australian art, the 2020 recipient of the Australia Council Award for Visual Arts goes to Brooke Andrew.
The recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Visual Arts is Brooke Andrew. Brooke is one of Australia's most distinguished artists, and his contribution to contemporary visual arts in Australia and globally is significant. Brooke's interdisciplinary and collaborative practice encompasses photography, video, neon, text, collage, printmaking, assemblage, sculpture, painting, and installation. His fascination with archival materials and strong interest in process is central to his practice. His research into Wiradjuri culture, racial identities, contemporary consumer culture, media and colonial histories gives him a uniquely Australian voice in critical global discussions. Brooke is the first Indigenous artist curator to be appointed as the artistic director of the Biennale of Sydney. The 22nd Biennale of Sydney, titled Niran, meaning edge in Wiradjuri language, will be an expansive artist and First Nations-led exhibition of contemporary visual art. It connects local communities and global networks and celebrates the strength and resilience of First Nations peoples. Brooke is well placed to make these connections and to lead conversations. He is completing a PhD at Oxford University on the power of objects to transform inherited histories, and this deep investigation has influenced his curatorial vision as he works to present audiences with a new model for a biennale. His many international connections and achievements include residencies at Gasworks and Goldsmith College in London, Künstlerhaus Britannien in Berlin, an AsiaLink residency in Cambodia, a residency at the Musée de Quai Branly in Paris, the ISCP residency in New York, and a residency at Cambridge University. Brooke has also had a Smithsonian Artist Research Fellowship at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. Brooke also received the 2018 Global Advance Arts Award and the Sidney Myer Creative Fellowship. This wide recognition, coupled with his many public commissions, reviews and contributions to research, make it a pleasure to celebrate Brooke Andrew as the recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Award for Visual Arts.
Try and carry this one home. I don't know if I can. I'm very humbled to be here. I mean, following Kath, what a champ. Thank you so much. I pay my respects to the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, all First Nations people here, and all of you. My mum and dad are here. Hi mum, hi dad, my friends. Marcia Langton, a big mentor of mine. Jan Minchin. Where's Anne Loxley, Lexi Glass? Many of you, my friends, my peers. It's sometimes quite a lonely life being a visual artist. Kind of put my head down and I work, and I was actually quite exhausted by looking at that. I think I need to have a bit of a break, and I can hardly see you all because it's the lights, but I'm so used to working with community, along community, and I am very humbled by the Australia Council and for Laura McLeod and all of Lydia Miller, who I've known for a long time as well. Thank you so much for your trust, for your engagement, and for your comradeship. And all to the other creatives here. I just want to say, life being a creative is sometimes complicated. We don't always know what we're doing. Sometimes we feel joy, and sometimes we're a bit lost. And I think that at the end of the day, though, it's really how we kind of connect with each other which makes it so much better. So thank you, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you. And I'll take it with me.
Thank you, Brooke. That wasn't in the plan. You've taken your trophy. I was looking forward to all these trophies. Thank you and congratulations. So finally, the Australia Council Don Banks Music Award honours a distinguished artist who has made an outstanding and sustained contribution to Australia's musical culture. It is named in honour of Don Banks, acclaimed Australian composer, performer and the first chair of the Council's Music Board. This year's recipient of the Australia Council Don Banks Music Award is Deborah Conway.
The 2020 Australia Council Don Banks Music Award goes to Deborah Conway. Deborah has been a significant and eloquent contributor to the Australian music scene for over 30 years. She is a forward thinker, a musician, a producer, innovator, motivator, role model, facilitator and entrepreneur. In these roles, she has pushed boundaries of both sound and culture with integrity and intelligence. Deborah's career began in the early 1980s when she co-founded the fiercely independent post-punk band Do Re Mi. By 1988, Rolling Stone had named Deborah as Australian Singer of the Year. In 1990, she released her debut solo album, String of Pearls, which received 9 ARIA nominations. She went on to win Best Female ARIA Award in 1992. Deborah's music is not limited to record. On top of her extensive touring, she has sung on the Iron Man by Pete Townsend alongside Nina Simone and John Lee Hooker. Deborah launched her own record label, Intercore, in 2004 alongside longtime collaborator Willie Zigier. In 2008, she became artistic director for the Queensland Music Festival. In this role, Deborah commissioned 20 new works and presented over 300 musical events to more than 350,000 people throughout Queensland. In 2012, she was nominated in the Financial Review's 100 Women of Influence, and in 2013, she was nominated for Australian of the Year. Her song, Alive and Brilliant, was inducted into the National Film and Sound Archive Hall of Fame in 2016. In that same year, Deborah was named a living legend by both the Leaps and Bounds Festival and Rolling Stone magazine, and in 2017, she was nominated for a Robert Helpman Award. It is a pleasure to add to these accolades and to recognise Deborah Conway as the recipient of the 2020 Australia Council Don Banks Music Award.
It's amazing. It's like a murder weapon. Yeah, it's exhausting. Wow, I did a lot. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm in a bunch of incredible alpha artists here that are all, extraordinary, and it feels, I feel very honoured to be amongst you all. You're all superheroes. Anyway, I've written my speech because I'm not good at speaking off the cuff, especially when I'm nervous and my heart is pounding and my mouth is dry. But man, this feels really good. I just feel like, they didn't mention on there, but I have to tell you, I just became a national living legend for the National Live Music Awards too, and I just got an AM, and it's like I'm 60 and I'm not dead, and so they're just giving me all this shit, And I've been banging my head against a brick music wall for a long time, so it's really good. Anyway, I still feel completely undeserving, but I'm here, so there you go. As far as I can tell, the Don Banks Music Award is not often given to someone mining the pop genre, but 2020 is my year, it seems. Everything is coming up Conway, to quote Sondheim via Millhouse. Over my thus 4-decade career, I've had plenty of time to explore a lot of aspects of making music. I've signed up with blatant commercialism, achieved pop chart success, fled to the clean air of high art, thrilled to the low arts, lost sleep going out on a limb for something I believed in but discovered I was sadly alone, gotten swept away on the joyous euphoria when a crazy idea is finally vindicated with bums on seats, endured the excruciating self-doubt of the songwriter thinking, I'll never write anything decent again, then writing something decent and nursing that lovely feeling for quite some time. I've conquered the fear of being shunned for putting out ideas for public scrutiny and savoured the exhilaration when they were instead embraced. Felt sick from nervous tremors before every significant performance, and all of them are significant for some reason. And then relished the relaxing of stomach muscle as the music in the moment obliterates the nerves and you become one with your instrument, the song, your co-musicians and your audience, and together travel to a magical place that will be never lived again in quite the same way, which is of course what keeps us going back, and despite all the pre-performance jitters and pre-album release nerves. To experience this fluid time machine is what every musician strives for. It is what I am blessed to have been immersed in on countless occasions, whether that be figuring out a song or recording a tour, an album or a festival. Really, I have only once entered a performance that maybe I should have worked in a bank instead. I've been on umpteen publicity campaigns over the decades, and let me tell you, it's actually more difficult than you might imagine to find people to talk to about music. They want to talk about your relationship, your kids, your home decor, your recent holiday, your diet secrets, your political vision, but rarely about the music. But an award like this is amazing to receive because it's all about the music. So I want to thank the Australia Council for honouring me. I'm entirely blown away. I want to thank in particular Paul and Andy. Wow. And I want to thank everyone I've ever played with or worked with who's taken the music seriously, but in particular, Willie Zigger, a collaborator without whom I wouldn't be receiving this award, and a musician who has never lost his sense of fun inside this serious business. Thank you. And we're going to play you a song.
So how brilliant. That brings us almost to the end of the 2020 Australia Council Awards. I want your gratitude for keeping us on time. But not quite, because as you can see, Deborah and her collaborator, Willie Zigger, are getting ready to send us off in style with a song. I've been given lots of wonderful words here to say, mostly to fill in while they're setting up. I think I just want to say simply what brilliant company we've kept tonight. We're also incredibly busy investing in the arts, advocating the arts, and it is just so wonderful to have it so directly expressed by artists and arts makers so directly, and you just get a glimpse of the breadth of work that is invested in by the Australian government and by the Australia Council. We are rich indeed. I'd like to thank this evening's hard-working interpreters for Auslan Services, Jennifer McLaughlin and Alana Weekhart. Thank you. Our thanks to the Darlinghurst Theatre Company for hosting us here on what is the set, I am told, of A Chorus Line, which I believe opens later this week. So now please join me in welcoming Deborah Conway and Willie Zigger performing Book of Life.
Blow the horn, give a voice to all the mournful souls who search to be reborn tonight. Forgiveness like the sharpest knife, oh God, inscribe me in the book of life. I've been hungry since before the dawn. Everybody's empty, but it's not for food. And everybody's praying here to be rescued. Examining our sins, it's hard not to conclude we're screwed. The world's in flames, these maddened days of black and white. No shades of grey to keep at bay the darkest night. There's never been a song that could save a life. Blow the horn, give a voice to all the mournful souls who search to be reborn tonight. Forgiveness like the sharpest knife, oh God, inscribe me in the book of life. I've been hungry since before the dawn. Tired and full of uncracked tears I still can't shed. Stored up with the unsaid things we never said. You wanted forgiveness, but I wasn't ready yet. Now you're dead. all the souls who lost themselves, I sing for you. Apart from that, there's nothing more that I can do. Though I know it's useless, it kind of helps me through. Blow the horn, give a voice to all the mournful souls who search to be reborn tonight. Forgiveness like the sharpest knife, oh God, inscribe me in the book of life. I've been hungry since before the dawn. I wanna see my children out in the world, grown into women from little girls. Why wouldn't you want that too? The older you get, the more friends you lose. This year I won't disappear in fire or flood. Next year I'll still be here to do some good. Well, I won't be taken by pills or thrills or wine. I should be doing fine. Blow the horn, give a voice to all the mournful souls who search to be reborn tonight. Forgiveness like the sharpest knife, oh God, inscribe me in the book of life. I've been hungry since before the dawn. I've been hungry since before the dawn.
So thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah and Willie. Well, from Old Pig to Book of Life, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. And it's a very, very rich tapestry, he said, mixing these metaphors shamelessly. Thank you all so much. Please join us in the foyer. We can continue the celebration. It actually means a lot to us that you are here as sector colleagues and leaders. It really does. It's very encouraging for us at the Australia Council that you would come and support these awards. Thank you, Minister. As Tommy Murphy said, your engagement with the sector is hugely valued by us. And above all, once again, thank you to these extraordinary artists who we honour tonight. Thank you all. Good night.